Hi, I'm Rachel with a demanding cat, Missy, behind me, and this is my Friday Reads video for July 26th, 2019. I have a lot of books to talk about, but more in an There are sirens and a demanding cat over here. I have a lot of books to talk about that I'll hope to get through quickly. Most of them are more aspirational than check marks of what I've read. So I'll start with this one. This is Hunger by Roxanne Gay. It's a memoir about obesity and Roxanne Gay's body and what it's been like to live within an obese body and how she got that way. I was hoping to finish it before this video, and now I'm hoping to finish it. Sorry, yikes, you know, she finds dangly appliances, electrical appliances, and plays with them. Anyway, I was hoping to finish this before the video, and now I'm hoping to finish it on Friday, because I'm filming early. It's good so far. I think it started a little slowly, because it started with, like, in media res, or like that she was writing the first few chapters, I guess, after writing the beginning, and it's just sort of a this was difficult to do sort of thing. And her writing is incredibly simplistic, although I think that's sort of the point, you know, that she's not trying to make this about bells and whistles. This is just her laying out her experiences and also a bit of pop culture, or I guess it's not really pop culture, but the broader culture around weight in society, like, you know, your Biggest Loser television shows and your diet fads and how they really work in real life. It's definitely raw. The things she's talking about are things that society deems are shameful, you know, about what it is to be big in the world. So I found it moving, and certainly the parts having to do with the trauma that led her to start eating excessively. You know, she was also very to the point with that, but describing her emotional state of dealing with that trauma, that part I think was the most emotional, of course. It's all emotional, but I mean, just about what it is to be a, sort of this outsider figure, you know, which is what obesity does to people. But anyway, I think it's good so far, and I will be giving further thoughts later, it seems, because it keeps going. I'm keeping on with the reading. Here is the one book I did finish this week. It's Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. This was a very famous literary fiction book from a couple of years ago. It, along with Hunger, won the Reading Women Awards of 2017. This is about a little under 500 pages. It's a family drama about Koreans living in Japan. It starts really in the 1910s, which is around the time that Japan colonized Korea, and then it goes all the way until 1989. It covers a lot of history, particularly history that affected Koreans and Japanese a lot. You know, we're talking World War II and the dropping of the bomb and the Korean War and what happened with dividing up that country. Korea plays a huge part in this, even though a lot of the characters, though Korean ethnically, have never actually... Oh gosh, sorry, that cat is just so distracting. She's scratching and everything. But anyway, they've never actually lived in Korea, but because of Japanese institutional biases, even descendants, people who were born in Japan, can't claim citizenship and like have South Korean passports, say, even though they've never even been there a lot of the time. So we're following this family. It starts with Sunja, who gets married to a man who sort of saves her from disgrace from a out-of-wedlock pregnancy, and he marries her, takes, you know, responsibility for her and her child, and they ultimately have another child. You know, they're living in poverty in the years around World War II, when things are particularly bad for Koreans in Japan. The years go on, and Sunja, her sister-in-law, ultimately her mother, they start up small little businesses like selling candies by the side of the road, but things change a lot for her sons. Her son Noah goes to college after a lot of arduous study and working to help make the money and so forth. And then her son Mozazu, who ultimately gets involved in the Pachinko parlors, which is basically seen as, you know, Korean scummy gay crime stuff, you know, like, kind of like the mafia in the U.S. in a way, like that. It's seen as seen as an underbelly of crime. There's a lot of gambling involved with the Pachinko business and a lot of shady dealings. Not that Mozazu takes part in that. Like, he's he's an interesting character because there's a little bit of violence to him, especially as a boy, but Lee never, like, lets him become a thug, basically. He's always a good man, too, that he never, as he grows and gets more and more money, he actually grows more respectable, really. And so the years continue to go on. There's a personal drama that comes into play, particularly with Noah, who is the son of a man who actually is a Korean sort of gangster who, you know, seduced his very young mother, and anyway, he finds out about his true parentage, but I don't want to spoil too much here. And then we go into their kids, particularly Mozazu's son. We go a little bit into friends and wives surrounding them. You know, to me, I found it kind of frustrating, although I respect that this is based off of the 19th century format where there's a whole lot of characters thrown at you, and I guess I'm just not as well versed with 19th century. And I found it to be a little disjointed in that way, that all of these sort of last-minute characters are introduced, kind of like with Lee's last book, Free Food for Millionaires. She had some last-minute characters introduced too, but you know, when I was talking about Pachinko versus Free Food versus Millionaires, I thought this one would be, you know, more to my liking because, you know, technically it takes place over, you know, several decades rather than a few years. But instead, I think I found Free Food for Millionaires to be a little more cohesive, because maybe because we were staying with the same characters for a longer period of time. I guess I'm flip-flopping on myself. I just found the characters to be more memorable in Lee's first book. Maybe it's bias because, you know, their lives are much more similar to mine growing up in the 90s in America. Maybe it's because, in a way, there's this passivity to Sunja, who is basically the main character. Not that she is always passive. She does make choices for herself. She has to. But ultimately, I feel like, you know, the war was really fleshed out, but then the action of the next several decades was much more sparse. And I guess the pacing kind of got to me a little bit with this. But there is so much good cultural commentary about just tracking in subtle to not so subtle ways the biases that these Koreans faced. Though we also get to see, you know, some other Japanese people, so they're not just, you know, the faceless enemy. We get to see, you know, people in all shades of, you know, morality. To end with quickly, this is the paperback of a famous book, so there's lots of stuff in the back, you know, a reading guide, an interview with Min Jin Lee, and also some remarks from Caroline Kennedy from the Martha's Vineyard Book Festival, which, you know, on its surface are kind of cool, but I allowed myself to get a little salty about some stuff she said at the end. I also want to congratulate Min on creating a great romantic hero in Hansu. He is Heathcliff, Percy Blakeney, Mr. Darcy, Rhett Butler rolled into one with a gangster twist. And the real reason I am here is because even though I know he is a fictional character, I am hoping that somehow I get to meet him. So anyway, Hansu is the Korean gangster Noah's father. You know, this comes back to Wuthering Heights and the way that people view this book. You know, some people viewing it as a romantic story, and Other people, myself included, viewing it as more of a cautionary tale. I love the book, I love the passion in it, but I realize the danger of that passion, that Heathcliff is not someone to be desired. He ruins a lot of lives, and really so does Hansu. I feel like, you know, not to get into shame culture, but in the 21st century, to sort of laud a man who in one scene literally breaks the nose of a high-priced prostitute because he's mad at her. He not only breaks her nose, but he beats her. To say that he's a great guy just, you know, rubs me the wrong way. I mean, to be fair, Hansu also paid for Sunja and her family throughout the war, and found her mother in Korea and brought her to Japan to be safe. But it just seems like Kennedy's giving him a bit of a pass, and I just can't see him as romantic. That's just kind of gross. To me, the tragic figure, maybe the most tragic figure, although there's a lot of them in here, would be Noah, the son, who wants so badly basically to be accepted as a Japanese person, even though he isn't. Though he worked so hard to find favor and success in his homeland of, for all intents and purposes, the place where he grew up and was born. But I found him to be the tragic figure, and you know, also much more morally scrupulous than his birth father. So, but I can't blame Lee for that. You know, readers will romanticize who they want to, I guess. Okay, more quickly, but also with more books, I will discuss what's coming up for me in the end of July and the beginning of August. Next, I want to get to the Pale of Settlement, Stories by Margot Singer, which won my Try a Story Tag video that I did recently, although I kind of rigged the contest. I figured I wanted to get to this collection anyway, more than the others, because it was at the top of my Goodreads, and because the author recently was highlighted in the recent Sammy Rohr Awards, which I just covered a couple of the other books in my most recent video. So I'm excited to get to this collection. It's sort of my wheelhouse of, you know, Jewish stories, mostly about Americans and Israelis, I'm pretty sure, so bring it on. So that's book one that I'm hoping to finish this weekend, frankly, and book two is The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. This is also a very important piece of American literature. I'll just go ahead and read the flap, or the back. A national bestseller when it first appeared in 1963, The Fire Next Time galvanized the nation and gave passionate voice to the emerging civil rights movement. At once a powerful evocation of James Baldwin's early life in Harlem and a disturbing examination of the consequences of racial injustice, The Fire Next Time is an intensely personal and provocative document. It consists of two letters written on the occasion of the centennial of the Emancipation Proclamation, which ended slavery in America. You know, officially, like on paper. Anyway, that exhorts Americans, both black and white, to attack the terrible legacy of racism. Described by the New York Times Book Review as a sermon, ultimatum, confession, deposition, testament, and chronicle, all presented in searing, brilliant prose, Baldwin's masterwork stands as a classic of our literature and as urgent today as when it was written, and I definitely believe that to be true, so it's time for me to get to this. This is something that came into my collection of books thanks to the Uncensored DC book scavenger hunt, which the DC Public Library has been doing in September these last several years, of picking 6 books that have been banned in the US or abroad, you know. And the 6th and final of my Uncensored DC list of last year, which I'm hoping to get to next week, is JAQUI DELGADO Wants to Kick Your Ass by Meg Medina. This is a YA contemporary book about Latin American issues. I believe it has to do a lot with bullying. It will be nice to end the month and, let's be frank, also begin August with a YA novel, which I think will be easier to read, but also will talk about important issues. So that about covers it for me now. Despite my lofty reading goals of trying to get through several books this weekend, I'm also at a lot of writing deadlines for myself, particularly with my blogging, that I want to do a lot of drafting and getting up of posts this weekend and I guess early next week as well. Always too little time and too much to do, I guess, but luckily hope things can usually slow down on the weekends. At least for me, I don't have to go to work on the weekends. So we'll see how much I get through. And I will also be back in the coming days for some end of month videos on BookTube. So you'll be seeing me soon. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.